of times when I have those moments of bliss, it's a reminder that it's possible. If I so choose to really, have this be a goal of mine and I focus on
Mm,
that, I really could.
you could.
Welcome and welcome. This is Mastermind Deliberations, and I am your hostess, Billionaire Bryt. And in this series, we are reviewing Think and Grow Rich. And if you're new to the show or the channel, Mastermind Deliberations is a study, basically, of books that are popular and not so popular that help you understand success principles, money, just things like that. So, to help me dive deep into chapter 6 of Think and Grow Rich, and I am honored to have her on the show. So, with that being said, welcome everyone, Betty Spruil. Mhm.
Some people want the magnificent things in life while they stay the same and they don't learn. This book that we're talking about is Think and Grow Rich.
Mhm.
So, what does it mean to think? It's very different than analyzing, but what is thinking?
Right at the beginning of chapter 6, it says, Man's only limitation within reason lies in his development and use of his imagination. He has not
Yes.
yet reached the apex of development in the use of his imaginative faculty. He has merely discovered that he has an imagination and has commenced to use it in a very elementary way. That suggests that even in our imagining, there's elevation that can be had. And to me, I think of, there's this belief that you can't dream when you sleep. You can't dream images of things that you've never seen before because our eyes take in so much information. Um, and I think that when Napoleon Hill is saying this, uh, reaching that higher level of imagination is seeing those things that you have never seen before. It is
Exactly.
seeing those things that with the natural eye you've never experienced, you've never been around, and yet you see something. You see this vision. Like I think of the Wright brothers, for example. Where did they ever see a plane before they made it? You know what I mean? Like, where did that come from? They saw birds, but did they ever really see planes? Like, the way that we know it, so it's like in those situations, the question becomes, where do these ideas come from? Where do these visions come from? And if you're reading the science of getting rich, which we'll cover later on on this channel, they mentioned something called the substance from which things are created.
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, that's where you start seeing those things that most people don't see or that you've never seen before with your own eyes.
Yeah.
So
And in today's world, we are like not unlike 1948 or the 50s, but in today's world, with so much technology, with their worlds, it's almost as if there are too many worlds being shown us, right?
that's an interesting way to put it, but I agree
Yeah, because there,
wholeheartedly.
yeah, what's happening, people are not grounded. I was grounded uh, in a life on the farm. So being it was grounded. If you're not embodying, right? Embodying and not all over the place. So, but anyway, so imagination now is imagination. We human beings, unlike other animals, from what I've studied, don't have imagination, but we can. So that makes us closer to what we call God than
Mm,
other animals, and I just say closer.
Right.
And that in our imagination, and if you can, maybe you can remember, you're too young to remember this, but in daydreaming, that's a form of imagining. And then adults will come along. You better get up from there. What are you thinking about
Get
now?
your head out the clouds.
Sorry,
Pay attention, Yeah.
that's
No, for sure.
well, imagination then it's like Einstein, the theory of relativity.
Mhm.
It came about a lot of people. I mean, many, many people were seeing the universe in that way of what he was talking about. But because they didn't have a way of capturing what it was, then they couldn't bring it forth. I like that language of bringing it forth. It's like music. I hear music all the time.
Mhm.
Can I write it down? Can I make a song?
Yeah.
But so that's where the practice comes in. That's where, and he says in here, and they all say it when it talks about manifestation, bringing forth, the law of attraction. All of that is saying to you what your part is, what your role is.
The actions you're supposed to take. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up music because um even with dance, um sometimes with visual art, but mostly with dancing and music, I would get these amazing ideas, these
Mm.
compositions, and be like, if only I knew how to play all these instruments, and if not play them, at least know how to program them enough on the computer to sound the way I need it to sound. And in my dreams, I am the best roller skater, dancer. I mean, most athletic. I'm doing all type of flips and tricks and all these cool little, dance moves that I could probably never do. you know, but it's interesting to me because, you know, I see it so clearly because I lucid dream.
Mm.
And sometimes when I have those moments of bliss, it's a reminder that it's possible. If I so choose to really, have this be a goal of mine and I focus on
Mm.
that, I really could.
You could.
I
With
really could. And it's interesting when I watched the Doctor Strange movie, the last one where it talked about multiverses and stuff.
Mhm.
And the between that and I think that was the same one where the red lady or whatever, she was going anyway, I forget her real name on the movie. But at the end of the day, she was trying to live multiple timelines where
Mm.
she had children
Mhm.
and she wanted her children for herself. And I thought it was interesting because she would go through the
Mm.
dreams of her other versions of herself. And I thought that was interesting with this concept of having multiple parallel timelines and visiting them in your dreams. And I think it's super cool to think that there is a timeline where I am the best roller skater slash dancer slash ninja parkour runner that there ever could be. And it's so much fun to be able to see myself
Mhm.
in so many capacities. And I think lucid dreaming also aids in my daytime imagination and my ability to tap
Mhm.
into a little bit better what it feels like to put myself in someone else's shoes or in my own visions and things like that. Do you think that your dream life has some sort of impact or that there's some correlation there?
There is. And Rebecca, the dream world, because we always dreaming dreams, right? So what we got, who is it that's dreaming? Who is it that's having the dream? And then with the dream, what's a fantasy? And when do we have a dream become a reality? And that's where the action piece comes in. You know what you're saying? Now, what does it take to write a great book or to just write a book? Now with GT and all of that, they're saying it's a lot easier, but even though it's a lot easier, some people won't write the book. They've been wanting to write for how many years? The technology. So technology doesn't give you vision. It just gives you maybe an easier way to get it done.
To execute the vision, but you have to have the vision to know
That's
what
right.
to execute.
And then to execute it. And that's where commitment comes in. Because a dream without action becomes a fantasy, and it's okay, but you got to distinguish what's a fantasy.
Yeah. And I
Right.
think too, I was listening to something earlier about how, there's that saying that when you get older, you put away childish things.
Mhm.
And what was pointed out to me was the order of things. You don't put away childish things in order to be grown. You become grown and outgrow the childish things.
Right.
So it requires a level of development and evolution to be able to get to the next level, you
Yes.
know?
And and this is the other mistake we make, which I'm finding, especially here in the Western world,
Mhm,
is that levels are hierarchies. That's not the way it is in the universe.
mhm. It's
Cer-
not linear at all.
yeah. And also, and this whole notion of a hierarchy, there are rungs to the ladder that you got to climb up. And when you get to the top, then da, da, da. There's a whole nother way of participating and engaging in life where your commitment. If my commitment is to sing, and I met some people like this in Los Angeles when I lived there.
Mhm,
They go, I don't want to be the best singer there is. I want to win awards and all that. And I would say, this is good, but this is what I recommend for you. Sing because you have a gift
mhm.
and you want to share it. Because everybody on this planet, 8 billion people, are not singers. So say, hey, you came here, your light, your gift is to give music to the world.
Yeah.
So find that and then see if you win awards. And if you do, great. And if you don't, at the end of your life, you would have lived a life filled with promise and commitment for you as well as so many others,
Right.
right?
Yeah. I think that especially with creatives,
Mm,
um, we get to this point where we do so much of the creating and where we're always in the imagination part, but not necessarily always in the other part of creating. Like there's steps,
right.
and you got to do all the steps, not just one or two. You can't skip and only stay in the middle. Like you have to do all the things to get all the things.
Yeah,
You
and
have to
this is, and I want to say
first.
this because this is
Mhm,
important.
mhm,
Learn how to make mistakes and move
mhm.
on. Making
Think
mistakes,
thinking.
you know what I mean? Yeah. And you're
Yeah.
gonna make mistakes. You
Mhm,
watch a little baby learning how to walk. They fall down. But if they
mhm.
never get up and try to walk, they're never gonna walk. And when they fall down, it's honey, you fell down. Come on, you can do this. You can do this. That's why the community in which you participate and engage is important for your
For your
success.
growth. Yeah. There's the book defines two forms of imagination,
Mhm.
um, synthetic imagination and creative imagination.
Mhm.
What are your definitions of them? And can you give some examples of when you've experienced both?
Synthetic imagination.
Mm-hmm.
It's like arrange concepts, ideas, and it creates nothing. So this is the thing, it's arranging. So we look at reality. So if we, the matrix, people,
Okay.
the matrix, right? So we,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, and as we are living in this matrix of ideas, of practices, of institutions, of, you know, and we're all cognitively blind. We can only see what we see in a limited way. But that's it's not the same as creative imagination. Creative imagination is something that we all have. It's not mine, it's not yours. And it plays into this whole, which I tend to lean towards,
Mm-hmm.
that all there is excuse me, is imagination. And
Mm-hmm.
what can I distinguish and play in? I can't play in the scientific world. Why?
Okay.
That's not the world that I've trained in. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
world where I've mastered distinctions, a way of seeing. It would be like if I took what do you call this, a slide and put it under a microscope and I look through it. What am I going to see on the slide? I'm going to see what I've been trained to see. Now, biologists will see things that I can never see.
Mm-hmm.
And so now with imagination, something shows up in my creative imagination. Then I go, okay. And you can, it moves you in your body, if you notice that. That's why mindfulness becomes so important, and
Mm-hmm.
being in your body. And then you go, I imagine one day that I would own my own business many times.
Me too.
Instead of a whole bunch of people, and the pandemic made a whole bunch of people sit and reimagine, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what it is. We're reimagining our lives and our world over and over. And then in some moment we take a stand, meaning commitment and intention.
Mm-hmm.
I said, running my own business, what is it going to take?
That right there is always a good question. It's not always like, or not just what is it going to take. But I think that question gets to be asked after we're clear on that's really what we're going for. Because I feel like if you're self-aware, you're going to know when you're on the fence. You're going to know when you are operating out of synthetic imagination
Mhm.
or when you're operating out of creative imagination. How many times have you had an idea and you're like, where's your notebook? And you just start jotting down everything you could think of, and you sit back and you go, wow, 5 pages of a whole vision. And then it's like at that point, what are you doing? Are
Yeah.
you just going to leave it there? Is it going to be a a dream that's not going to be pursued? Is it something that you're going to give to someone else to try to do? Like, what are you going to do with it? And I find that is, um, for me being an overachiever sometimes, that becomes an issue for me because I get so many ideas, so
Mhm.
many like downloads, and it's like idea, boom, flesh it out, bam, and I'm like, oh wow, this is great, this is awesome, and then it's like, how do I do it? Instead of just focusing on um, doing what I know to do, because now my brain is focused on, well, what's the plan? Even in the book they say when it comes to money, it requires a plan that includes imagination,
That's right.
right? So it's like my thing is like, how do I get there? But then I get stuck in analysis paralysis, and now I'm not making a decision. Now I'm just like overwhelmed, and then I'm going to shut down because it's too much. It's too much, and so I find that for a lot of creatives specifically, they have that issue, where there's so many ideas, there's so many imaginations. And it's like, which one do I do first? And I
Yeah.
think that wisdom comes into play at that point. With
Wisdom and rigor.
and rigor. Okay.
And rigor. And this is where, you know, as we're speaking now, there's so many thoughts going through your mind. not your brain, but going through your mind. And that's what they do. We call it the monkey mind. It just goes tap, tap, tap.
Yeah. It's like, oh, what's that?
Oh,
Squirrel.
another shining
Oh,
gold object.
green, green.
And all over the place. And you'll
Mhm,
notice that when we, and a part of the thinking behind that, I notice it in my life with people I work with. There's so many things I want to do. If I just do this, then I'm going to miss that.
mhm,
Now, if you don't settle on one, you're going to miss everything,
mhm.
right? Because we human beings are designed, we're shaped to focus. And there have been a few people who can do many, many things, but
Mhm.
most of us can only do in one lifetime. We talk about lifetime. In one lifetime, we become a master.
Mhm.
We become a master in this domain. And some people are fortunate and blessed that they can master many things. But this is, as I work with people and as I work with myself, it is mindfully orienting myself every day
Mhm.
to what it is I'm about. Now, some days I miss. I want you to know completely, I miss. Okay.
Got you.
Well, but and this is the self-love piece. And when I do that now, and when I was younger, I had a thing I could beat myself up. Oh, you should know better. You're out here standing in front of thousands of people all over the world,
Yeah.
telling them this and that and that. And here you are. You say you're going to get up at 10 a.m., do your practices, go for a walk, and then I look at my watch, it's 10:15.
You're like, oops.
Yeah. And then, okay, well, it's 10:15. Nothing's going to get done anyway. And then it plays into my story, my narrative of lack and limitation.
Yeah, that narrative right there is really strong in a lot of communities.
Yes.
And they show up in a lot of different ways that we don't typically understand. And that's part of why I wanted Mastermind Deliberations to, come into fruition, because we always hear people saying, oh, you should read this book, it's changed my life. And then you'll read the book and be like, huh?
Yeah.
And so it's like having these conversations and studying these things, it allows us to remain in discovery, to ask the proper questions, to dig a little bit deeper and be like, what is it that's what that is. Oh, wow. I can see how this operates from a poverty mentality. I can see how my relationship with money is as poor as I feel. Or, all of those things matter when you're trying to elevate. And I think right now it's important to have this conversation because in America, the middle class is being wedged out. And so, or what we thought was a middle class is being wedged out. And so it's getting harder and harder, to solidify housing, to get decent, healthy food, to have kids and support them and put them in proper schools. And are they being taught properly? And, all these other things that are big and beyond our, immediate range of power. It's like our relationships with a lot of these systems and concepts and structures, they need healing.
And who's going to heal them?
Right. I mean, this is why we're here,
Yeah,
because
yes, because
we're trying to help with that process.
someone made those systems,
Mhm.
and now we're here to bring about new systems and institutions and worldviews and ways of thinking that will support more of the whole. It's like you've heard me say this, or maybe you haven't, but it's a, you're whole, perfect, and complete.
Yeah.
Everyone is. So now we're designing a world that matches that instead of you poor, broken,
Mhm.
downtrodden people. No, so this is the ecological thought. I want to go too far in there. But once that's what I love music as an analogy.
Mhm.
Okay. I was in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago,
Mhm.
and the music was so amazing. Uh, Once we can feel the music in our bodies, it's like our imagination too. It's just not just a thought. it shifts time, it shifts everything, but you have the capacity to act on your imagination. I don't
Mhm.
understand what in imagination, someone going, going out killing people. That showed up in their imagination. We're not talking about that.
Right.
Yeah. But we're talking about imagination is the stuff that this universe is made of. And to participate and engage with that imagination is the gift. The imagination itself is a gift. And it's available to everyone.
Mhm.
But our narratives stop us. Oh, I can't do that. I'm a woman. I can't do that. This is
Yeah,
that. No.
those social constructs, those self-limiting beliefs, the
Yes. Yes.
self-doubt. You'd be like talking yourself out of amazing things. We've all done it.
Yes. And that's where the rigor comes in. When you notice it,
Hmm.
stop and say, is this true? Or is this something I'm telling myself?
Right. I had a similar experience.
Uh-huh.
I'll be, by the time this airs, I'll be officially in public speaking arenas. And I called my dad and was like, "Dad, I just need some emotional support. I'm about to do this thing." And he was like confused. I was like, "What do you mean? What?" I'm like, "You're not doing it right. You're not dadding correctly." But I just let him talk because then he, kind of was like, he's in context. He was the one that took me to my first open mic. So
Mm.
he knows I don't have stage fright like most people do when it comes to public speaking. It's
Yes.
not the it's not the public speaking that I'm concerned about, not the act of public speaking,
Mm-hmm.
but what that means for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I said, I just don't want to fail. He was like, "How you gonna fail at something you ain't never did? Like, how do you know?
Yes.
Are you gonna try first, or are you just gonna,
Mhm.
tell yourself you're nervous and you're scared and whatever?" And I'm like, "Well, you know what? You got a point, Pop." Because,
Yeah.
ultimately speaking, I realized I was excited and I was nervous, but I wasn't afraid really until I
Mhm.
started talking about being afraid and my underlying fears that had been there for some time. Even when I was 18, someone spoke into me and was like, "Don't fear success." And I was like, "What you mean? I'm not scared of success." But I always kept that little piece of paper that it was written
Yeah.
on as a note for a while. And it stuck with me. I mean, I'm 34 right now.
Mhm.
This was when I was 18. Someone said, "Do not fear success." And what I realized was the fear was the responsibility that came with it.
Yeah.
And failing the people that I would then be responsible for should I show my full self to this world. And that was what I was nervous about. Not the public speaking itself,
Yes.
not even saying something wrong and getting something wrong. You said it yourself. I'm all for the learning. And the people that I rock with are just along for the ride, But
Mhm.
at the same time, he was like, my dad, he was saying, you've set the foundation for these X amount of years. You're not new to this game.
Yep.
You're just new to telling the world what you've done and where you've been and how you got to where you are. And you can say that on a stage, no problem. So what are you really concerned about? I was like, oh, good point, Dad.
And this,
Sometimes we do talk ourselves out of, you know, um, our blessing.
yes. Now, the thing about Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich,
Mhm,
when it was written, we didn't have as much information as we have now, or knowledge about the brain.
mhm,
And there are parts of the brain that are structured and designed to have us to be afraid of certain things.
mhm,
And so success, and you've noticed this in your life, is the moment when you can say, not now, whatever those thoughts, feelings, beliefs are, all of that's coming up. And then at some moment you go, but this is what I'm doing now, right? So, but all that's going on all the time, and that's where the rigor is, the discipline is, the what? And it doesn't matter that that happens, because it is. In any new endeavor, like you said, we got a little bit of that conversation going on.
Mm-hmm.
But you as the observer now, you as the designer, as the creator, you can, and this takes practice. I want you to know it takes practice to say no, but to notice it and go, no, just like you did, what you said. I'm doing this, and everything else then will recede to the background, and then you're in action. And that's what we're learning. It's not cultural. The limitations are cultural. But the reality of it is that we're not limited.
That's a good point.